books. There are folks with the same deformations of their skulls. So that lining up bones in a certain order does not prove that's the way it evolved. Yes, sir?
Why are the bones that have been found only quote-unquote sickened bones? Why don't we have a fine array of healthy bones from these people too?
All right. Here is some charts that I photocopied from this book of the different so-called, like for instance, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and the dates that they were assigned. You got to understand, there is a preconceived idea that is very well established called the geologic column, the time scale by the evolutionist. You know, so certain things happen, and it's a preconceived idea. And if a fossil is found, it must fit into that pattern, or the time is rejected. Many of the fossils that have been found, they have said, well, this is fully human, but it's too old. There's archaic Homo sapien species that don't fit. Pure, 100% normal, natural Homo sapien bones have been found, just like today's bones, in layers that are supposedly 2 million years old. So all sorts of mental gymnastics must be done if you want to preserve the theory, the interpretation. If you're just willing to look at the facts, you would have to say, hey, if this bone is 2 million years old, then all these other things don't matter. They can't be human ancestors. And I've got enough of these to pass out to everybody. We'll do this at the end in just a second. Homo erectus, Homo habilis. Should be another page of these, bud. Oh, here. I thought, yeah, here they are. Okay, two separate ones. No, that's something else. Can I go check the back of the van and see if there's another set of these things that I photocopied? Would you please? Oh. So, I think very few human fossils are found, period. There are probably only 4,000 human fossils or humanoid fossils found in the entire world. That's a reasonable figure. To me, the explanation of that would be, when God first made the world, it was full of animals and full of plants, but only 2 people. They then had to populate the world, and in 1,600 years, there were only several million, maybe a billion, I don't know. But not near the population we have today. So human bones would be rare for 2 reasons. Number 1, there weren't as many humans as there were animals. Number 2, humans are going to figure out a way to avoid drowning until the last minute, which puts them on top and they rot. They're not preserved at all. So the fact that we only have 4,000 or so is no problem for me. Now how they're dated, well, all that kind of stuff, carbon dating, we'll get into that in just a little bit. After this flood, though, I believe man began killing off the dinosaurs. See, well, the climate killed off many of them because climate was different and they couldn't grow as big and live as long. But man began hunting them, and that's why during this era, from 4,000 years ago, we have many stories of people killing dragons. There are many legends like that of dragon slayers. The Chinese recipes from the 3,000 years ago call for dragon bones ground up in the recipes, dragon saliva, dragon fat, you know, for all kinds of different so-called recipes or medicines. Is it all just mythology? I mean, they were there, we weren't. If you have an evolutionary perspective, a worldview, you have to give all of the so-called dragon stories the interpretation of mythology. If you have a creationist worldview, that would really make sense that dinosaurs may have lived with man for 1,000 years or so after the flood. They were getting smaller, they were getting more rare, and they were being hunted to the point of even total extinction in many areas. Then you come up into the present. And there are still many thousands of reports coming out of places around the world of dinosaurs that may still be living. For instance, Loch Ness Monster. There's been hoaxes and frauds, no question. But there have been 11,000 reported sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. And if you show this dinosaur, a plesiosaurus, to anybody who has seen the Loch Ness Monster, they will say, that's it. That's what I saw right there. Well, now, there's no question. Some may be trying to get tourist dollars over there in, Scotland and all that. I've not been there. I do have a map of Loch Ness right here from Scotland with some of the pictures that have been taken of the Loch Ness Monster and an underwater topography of the area. The lake is 900 to 1,000 feet deep. And there have been some very reputable people with nothing to gain but ridicule who have said, I have seen it. So I have spent many years, not out there, bud? I have spent many years collecting data, believe it or not, on dinosaurs that may still be alive. Now, they're not nearly as big, and they're certainly not anywhere in Pensacola, Florida, that I know of. It's not like they're all over the world. But you really can't prove the extinction of anything. And think about that for a minute. You can't prove anything is extinct, because you cannot be all places at all times to examine the whole world simultaneously. There are some who are saying there may be a few dodo birds left on some of these Pacific islands. I don't know. They haven't been seen in 300 years, but how can you prove there aren't any? So proving extinction is an impossible thing to do. There are those who are saying that there could be a few dinosaurs still left. if you watch programs like Unsolved Mysteries or Sightings or things like that, you see some awfully bizarre things on there that don't make sense if you have this worldview. Because you've already been taught dinosaurs died out 70 million years ago. Don't dare question that or you'll be excommunicated from the temples of higher learning, you know? Yes?
Well, I'm detecting a little bit of a straw man here, because if this so-called evolutionist view isn't half as solid as you're making it out to be, there's a big argument now whether or not dinosaurs were warm or cold-blooded, and there's no bird fossils at all. There's only 3 Archaeopteryx fossils in the whole world. Nothing else even looks like a bird. They're real willing to talk about what's the problem with it. And I don't see this monolithic view held by the evolutionists at all. I mean, I just got done going through 6 books on early man for a paper on the Piltdown hoax, and these guys can't agree on a homo habilis at all. There's no view out there that's saying, yes, it's this way, yes, they did this. They're real flexible on that. I think it's kind of who you talk to, but I sure don't detect this evolutionist monolith out there that's has to be, that they're all got this view, because they know.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point. But see, what I'm concerned about, I guess, as a high school teacher, is what is in our grade school and junior high and high school textbooks. I assure you, in those books, it is a monolithic worldview. This is the way it happened, boys and girls. It is presented as if it is a fact. There is no other alternatives offered. Sure. So at a college level, you may have a good point. But at a junior high, high school level, it is a monolithic worldview. This is the way it happened. And so I object to that. I think the teaching of evolution is largely religious, not scientific. Now, we must define our terms. Evolution. I have Webster's Dictionary's definition of evolution. Okay? Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 2nd College Edition, 1986. Evolution, I'm just going to read part of it here, and you're welcome to look it up for yourself. A development of a species, organism, or organ from its original or primitive state to its present or specialized state, phylogeny or ontogeny. The theory, now generally accepted, that all species of plants and animals develop from earlier forms of hereditary transmission of slight variations of successive generations. Well, actually, this is, I think, a little deceitful, because what is taught in our textbooks is more than just the idea that parents may have children that are different than the parents a little bit. That would be classified, in my view, as microevolution. There is evolution in that sense as far as variations. I have 3 children, they're all very different. If a couple has 10 children, they're all going to be very different. And your grandkids will be even more different. But that's not really evolution. That's where we need to define the term, I guess, and I should have done this earlier. Micro and macro. I would accept microevolution. I would say, for instance, you could get a variety of mutts from the dog pound, and over the next 50 years, through selective breeding, you could develop a wide variety of dogs. You could maybe even develop the Chihuahua and the Great Dane in 100 years. I don't know, maybe take 500 years, but it could be done. But stand 50 feet away and look at it. It is still a dog. It is obviously